Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Get ready for Talking Heads, the show where expert insights meet world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Brought to you by USA Global TV and Radio. Meet our distinguished presenters. From the great state of Texas, longevity expert, award-winning author, publisher, and distinguished Toastmaster, red.olaughlin. From London, England, soul heart awakener, novelist, vocal coach, and artist, Dr. Madeline Chan. Also from England, the Harley Street stress expert, therapist, ambassador for peace, and speaker, Carolyn Heward. And from Australia, ICF PCC credentialed coach, entrepreneur, and leadership coach, Mariska Dupria. Experience their expertise, connect with their wisdom, and transform your perspective. Watch Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. This video and its contents are the property of USA Global TV and Radio. All rights reserved. Terms and conditions apply. Visit usaglobaltv.com for more details.
Howdy, y'all. red.olaughlin here. We're on Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Topic today is food and aging, two things that we typically do every day. We age every minute. Can't do a whole lot about that, although I'll be talking about some things today that might slow down incrementally some of the aging processes. But foods, we do have a tendency to eat almost every day. Some of us have options to fast, but most of us generally eat something every day. So I'm talking about aging primarily, but what impact does food have on the aging processes? So that being said, let me go ahead and load up my slides here quickly and we'll get right on. Okay, food and aging. We are live streaming on Amazon Fire, Zizzle TV, E360 TV, YouTube, a couple different channels on YouTube, Android TV, Apple TV, social media, X. I know there's a couple new ones that have been added. And we're on the audio broadcast after the fact, Spotify and some other ones. All my shows are for education and awareness. My website is red.olaughlin.com. That's red like the color RED, Olaughlin, OLAUGHLIN for the audio audience, red.olaughlin.com. My books can be found there. I can be reached at red.olaughlin.com. So a lot of good information there. The shows live and archived are found on YouTube. You just go in there and type in USA Global TV and Radio. You can pull up the YouTube show area and go to live shows, what's coming up, or search the archives. On my website, red.olaughlin.com, I also have a list of all the archive shows. I'm a researcher. I've never been in the medical or pharmaceutical fields. I love chemistry, though. It's my first degree. I have 5 academic degrees, all different fields, 7 professional certifications. But I research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. Treat a cause, fix a problem. Treat symptoms, and you'll always be treating symptoms. But when you're treating symptoms, sometimes the cause continues on and may get worse. Retired Navy captain, naval aviator, there for many, many years, been to a lot of different places. Very, very shortly, in fact, even less than a month now, my wife and I will be married for 57 years. 2 kids, 3 grandkids, and our first great grandson is a little over a year and a half. Amazing how time flies, aging. Best-selling author. I've written 6 books, actually 6 books I've written and published. I have 2 more that I'm in the process. When I updated the slide, I thought that I had them already done, but also an independent publisher. I've done probably about 50 books for other authors, distinguished Toastmaster. I have written over 1,000 LinkedIn articles, mostly on health and wellness, some aspect of aging or longevity. Again, another reminder, information is today for educational purposes. I was fortunate last year, 2024, to be the number 2 and number 6 global TV host for my show, The Wise Ones. I have 2 books that are really relative to today's discussion. One's called Longevity Secrets for Healthy Aging, but I'm only talking about 2 things in there. And I said, well, maybe what I really want to talk about on food, because the joy of ageless health gets into the real aspects of what happens at the cellular level when you have chronic low-level cellular inflammation and disease formation. You got stress and toxins and radiation, infection, inflammation, diet, and stuff. So I think this one's probably a better source of information. But let's just get right straight into the presentation today. Food and aging. Food can either accelerate or decelerate the aging processes. That's the nutrients the body uses. It gets what it needs, it's going to be happy. It doesn't get what it needs, things can happen. And what happens is inflammation. And this is I just mentioned, chronic low-level cellular inflammation left unchecked can lead to a lot of different diseases. It affects our immune function. It affects our bone strength over time, nutrition. And I'll talk a little bit about bone strength in my own story toward the end. Nutrition depends on cognitive ability. We end up with a couple of the B vitamins missing in our diets, and we more have a higher tendency toward anxiety and depression than otherwise. But on food, how much, how often, what are the choices, and a lot more, and why we're going to be talking about today. So nutrition, I think that's literally where everything starts. If we're not getting what we need, something can happen. So if I'm not getting vitamin B12, for instance, my symptoms will probably mimic Alzheimer's. If I'm not getting B6 and B2, I may end up with a little bit more anxiety in my life. If I'm not getting the proper nutrition, things can happen. There's a doctor, Terry Walsh, she's an internist, I believe. Late in life, she came down with MS, multiple sclerosis. And no matter what the doctors did, it got worse and worse. She finally ended up in a wheelchair. And after a number of years, she did some research, wrote a book called The Walls Protocol. And for the audio audience, that's WAHLS, Walls Protocol. And she put herself on it. And after a few months, she was able to get out of the wheelchair, and actually start using a walker. A month or 2 later, a couple of months later, she was able to walk using a cane. By the end of the first year, she was able to bicycle, I think, up to 18 miles a day, all because of nutrition. Her protocol has 4 different platforms to it, 4 different pillars. One of them deals with diet, and the diet isolates literally about 32 different nutrients the body needs on a daily basis. My wife was going through chemo at the time, and I read her book, Terry Wall's book, The Walls Protocol. And I'm thinking to myself, well, all she did was change a little bit of exercise, change a little bit of this, but the big change in her life was diet, and as she pointed out in her book. And I'm thinking to myself, well, my wife's got a lot of problems. I've been able to some degree address some of them with some of my research. My challenge was, what can I do to counter some of the drug side effects? And little by little, we whittled them down, and I got down to fatigue, nothing I could do. She was taking 2-3 naps a day, not eating. And I said, well, maybe this might help. There was nothing in the literature that said it would. So I put my wife between chemo and radiation on this Walls protocol, primarily the diet platform. And within 48 hours, her fatigue disappeared. Within 7 days, she was able to volunteer back up at the church, something she hadn't done for months. And she started radiation. They said her fatigue would probably get worse. Certainly would stay the same. Well, at this point in time, she didn't have fatigue. On the last day she went through months of chemo. She went through weeks of radiation. And the last day of radiation, we jumped in the car and drove off to Jacksonville, Florida, about 1,000-mile trip from Houston. And we went there to pick up my parents' estate stuff. And so we got there, and literally 48 hours after we left home, we turned around and started heading back. I drove a U-Haul. My wife followed me 500 miles each day by herself in the car, literally 48 hours after her last radiation treatment. Absolutely no fatigue at all. And so I'm thinking to myself, nutrition has that big enough effect that it can take somebody who was in a wheelchair for years and have them up fully active and functional. Takes my wife and literally eliminates chemo fog and has no effect on her body whatsoever with all the radiation. There has to be something to this. That really has to be a major impact on the body. So I shifted over. I had been speaking and writing primarily on self-improvement, motivation, inspiration. I've been going around the country with my mentor, and that was my primary focus, selling books in the back of the room and stuff. But I started changing over to health and wellness. I said, if this works, why not? And my civilian job just prior to this was called I'll think of it in a minute. Anyway, I was doing failure analysis for an oil field services company, and I dig down into what caused it to fail. Well, why did that happen? Well, okay, why did that happen? Why did that happen? And that's kind of what I'm looking at here. Why does something happen in the human body, and what can you do to accelerate it or decelerate it? And so my focus was on, now let me do some research in the human body and health, longevity primarily, age-related diseases. And that's where I've kind of evolved from here over the last 10 years. So in a perfect world, we'd eat just the right stuff, the right amount. We would go about doing our normal daily activities. Our bodies would be fed, we'd be healthy. We wouldn't be putting on extra weight. We'd be able to do what we want to do, and we'd be happy campers. However, that's not what happens in our world. We typically live in a fairly unhealthy world. We make a lot of unwise decisions. Those choices can cost us in so many areas. But if I'm looking at food primarily and aging, what can I do? I know that disease primarily has a genesis in chronic low-level cellular inflammation. Well, what causes that level of inflammation? Well, the molecules, the DNA, the mitochondria are affected by what's called free radical damage. A molecule loses an electron, it becomes what's called a free radical. Now it's scurrying about trying to find another molecule that it can reach out and grab an electron and stabilize itself. Okay, so it grabs the electron, it's stable, it's happy. But now you have a new molecule that a moment ago was happy, and now it's a free radical because it's missing an electron, it's got to go find one. So typically we replace these missing electrons with the foods we eat, the veggies and the fruits they're called antioxidants. And they provide some level of replacement electrons to our body so that we keep our inflammation very, very low. There is a particular test called C-reactive protein that you can measure your total body inflammation. And I think it's a pretty good tool. I have it done every year on my annual physical. But the level of inflammation in your body, you want to keep to absolutely zero or as close to it as you can. Because the foods we eat, the metabolism, the things that we do or not do in some cases, personal care products, the toxins, stress, lots of things going on in our lives create these free radicals, and they're 24/7. So unless I have some level of reserve, the inflammation is left unchecked, and the inflammation over time becomes oxidation. Think of it as a piece of metal sitting outside. You know, if you go out there and you polish it and you keep it nice and shiny all the time, wax it, it's going to do well. But if you just let it sit to the elements, rust is going to occur over time. It's going to degrade and rust away. But our immune system is what takes care of a lot of these little daily mutations to our DNA and other functions in there. So our immune system helps, the antioxidants help, but over time, that oxidation, if it's left unchecked, can start to degrade our immune system, and we're unable to fix everything that's happening. And incrementally, a tumor can develop, and you may not know about it for years. Okay. One of the things I really and truly believe in is trying to keep our mitochondria as healthy as possible. That's the cellular level in our body where all our energy is generated. So a lot of foods support mitochondrial health. And these are our antioxidants, your veggies, primarily your green ones, but we're also looking at any colored vegetable, colored fruits, fatty fish, or omega-3s, your nuts. A lot of things in there are good antioxidants. But one of the things our bodies also naturally we produce is called CoQ10, but we destroy every molecule of CoQ10 that we produce when you're taking a statin drug to lower your cholesterol. That's a subject for a totally different discussion, but your body makes CoQ10, uses it in every cell in the body, yet we take a drug to shut down the production of it in order to control cholesterol, which our body makes. And when we're not getting it from our foods, we make more. When we're getting plenty from our foods, we make less. It's kind of a conundrum, but it's an issue of further discussion down the road. But what we do need are a lot of healthy, good quality proteins and healthy fats, and to avoid toxins. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. So what are one of the causes of aging? Senescence. It's a process in our body where the cells are supposed to die and they don't. They become what they call zombie cells, and they go around creating havoc. And so as we get older, we actually create more of these things because what used to be in control of everything isn't there in the right amount. And as such, a little bit of hanky-panky is going on, and boom, all of a sudden, I have a lot of these zombie cells rolling around. Well, how do I get rid of them? Well, one of the ways is fasting. There's a process called autophagy, which our bodies essentially will take each cell and clean it out, recycle the stuff that's in there, make it literally brand new. And so you get to a zombie cell, and it'll actually cause the immune system to identify it and destroy it. Autophagy starts when you're not eating for about 18 hours, but it's incremental. You're just turning on the switch, and you're about 1%. Well, at about 72 hours of fasting, you're at about 100%. So if you want to do something, I do a 72-hour fast every month, or I try to. I'm successful most of the time. But my 72 hours turns into 100, 120, 150. It just sort of depends on how I'm feeling at the time. But autophagy is a program that recycles and cleans up everything. You have a counter cycle called mTOR, mammalian target of rapamycin. And that's the one that builds and gets your muscles and gets your growth and a lot of things. So you got kind of a balance between mTOR and autophagy. But what we need to counter some of these senescence cells is antioxidants. Exercise does a pretty good job of weeding them out. Dark chocolate is another one, again, but you're looking at something over 70%. And dark chocolate's also known here lately for stem cells and some other things. But physin, quercetin come from strawberries and apples. Physin does. Quercetin comes from onions and kale. But both of those two fight senescence. And strawberries, apples, yeah, good fruits and vegetables. Onions, kale. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking to have. Another cause of aging is what's called protein homeostasis or proteostasis. There's a system in our body that manages, maintains, regulates our protein health. And over time, that declines with age. But when it's operating properly, the proteins are made the way they're supposed to be. Over time, they have a tendency to fold on each other. That becomes a problem. Getting the protein from point A to point B, wherever it needs to go, that's part of this protein management system. And then there's a certain point in time when the protein's old, it's degraded, it needs to be destroyed. And so that's all part of this protein homeostasis. Well, in aging, you're seeing more of that occur faster. And as such, in order to slow it down, halt it a little bit, there are some things we can do. And the quality of the protein that we choose has some impact on that. I took the Walls protocol and I made one tweak to it. I said, don't eat the same protein 2 days in a row. So if I'm having salmon and shrimp today, tomorrow I want to have eggs and beef. And maybe the next day I want to have pork and chicken. So I mix up your protein sources. But there's another part of our body that works very, very nicely. It's called heat shock response. And so when I'm stressed with heat, let's say I go in the sauna for a while or jacuzzi, the body's going to respond to that heat and actually causes the body to make these heat shock proteins. And as such, they act as little chaperones and they actually protect and guard this process of protein homeostasis. Cells communicate just like we're communicating right now. They talk to each other. They tell things what's going on. You have a problem, whatever. They're constantly in back, just like our guts talk to our brains. Our gut is our second brain. Where there's constant communication going on throughout the body. As we get older, some of these telephone wires start to fray a little bit, start to fall apart. You got to use other methods. Anyway, aging disrupts the cellular communication of the body. I need the proteins, the hormones, other cells that support this proper response to be healthy. And so if I'm not eating the healthy materials that I need to be eating, all of a sudden I start looking at my C-reactive protein levels starting to climb a little bit. So instead of getting down there less than 0.25, I'm down now maybe at 2, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20. And all of a sudden my whole body is starting to become inflamed. I'm opening up the world of inflammation, oxidation, and malfunction, beginning of any kind of disease, tumors, etc. And this cellular miscommunication or inability to communicate is a typical hallmark of aging. In fact, almost everything I'm talking about today is a significant factor, or what they call a hallmark. Well, there is one particular molecule, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, NAD plus for short, and that's found in turkey and beef and fish and some fruits and veggies. And that NAD plus, there's also some therapies out there that are doing it, but there are foods out there that give us this NAD. And when we have that NAD, now we have the support mechanism to fight some of this inflammation, which we also need the antioxidants and other things for, but to give the proteins and the cells and the hormones that support structure it needs to facilitate better communication. Okay, free radicals, they hit DNA all the time, 24/7. And we end up with mutations. Normally our bodies take care of that either through the antioxidants, through immune system. A lot of things happen, but sometimes we have what's called genomic instability. Our genes are what our DNA tells our bodies to do. And so we get a certain level of genes from our parents. And if you have a gene that is going to facilitate Alzheimer's, breast cancer, some other aspect of a disease, then there is another category of study called epigenetics. Well, epigenetics is being able to not turn on a switch that should not be turned on, or turning off a switch that is turned on. So it's a light switch issue. And we're going to talk about epigenetics here in just a second in a slightly different manner. But the DNA gives our bodies, our cells, tissues, organs, the expression that it says, okay, this is what you need to do to function properly. But sometimes these mutations, due to other causes, are not there. In other words, we age and I get this genomic instability, but not necessarily from a free radical, but it's similar. In other words, it's there, but it's causing a problem. And again, antioxidants, our vitamins, our minerals, our phytonutrients, that's your fruits and vegetables. Fasting, again, activates autophagy. Caloric restriction, that's just cutting down the number of total calories you have on a daily basis. But try to keep those calories nutritionally balanced if at all possible. Stress management and exercise also helps in this genomic instability. However, when I look at the epigenetic world, now I have things called epigenetic alterations. And again, they affect our aging, our DNA, our function, and significantly contribute to senescence, which is the old cells that are supposed to die, but they don't. They become zombie cells. But the problem here is different than the last one, because now the DNA is operating properly. It's telling the body, this is what you should be doing, but our body is misinterpreting it. There's nothing wrong with the DNA, but for whatever reason, that communication is not being understood. And so you have an aging change that is acting as if my DNA actually said, go do something different. It's not telling us that, but it's influencing the change. And again, diet, again, a major one of having the good quality stuff that's there. But you have other factors that interrupt this too. And that's toxins, exercise, stress, emotions, and our overall immunity. A lot of issues there. And when you start looking at these things, they start interweaving. And because I have one doesn't mean I don't have another. So if we just treat one without treating all of them, it's like cancer. You get cancer for a particular reason. Why? I don't know, but I would be willing to bet you it has some aspect of stress, toxins, radiation, inflammation, diet. There's a number of different causes that instituted that tumor in your body. But if you don't change something, you're going to see the same thing over and over again. So anyway, right now we're looking at that. Telomere shortening. This is kind of an interesting topic because at the end of your DNA, you have this little spiral thing going around. There's an end cap, just like on a shoelace, a little plastic end cap. As the cells divide and become two cells, cellular replication, you lose just a little bit of that end cap on the DNA. But the end cap keeps the DNA from unraveling. It's a protective mechanism. As you get old enough, the cell is replicated so many times, the DNA is very, very short, and as such, you don't get the protection anymore. The cell dies. That's the program. But we want to focus on reducing inflammation and oxidation and the cellular health. That's what does that. Now you look at other things, exercise, a little bit different. We're talking about more moderate exercise as opposed to high intensity interval training. We're looking at diet as opposed to fasting does some level, but caloric restriction is a bigger help in this. Stress management, quality sleep, again, your fruits and veggies, omega-3s, and removing as many toxins as you can. In my book, Longevity Secrets for Healthy Aging, I talk about telomere shortening and a lot of things in there, but I also talk about another thing called human growth hormone. As toddlers, we are just making tons of it, and it's what causes us to grow and mature and become human, become adults. But as you're getting older, your 20s, you start losing it. Your 30s, you lost a fair amount. By the time you're 60s, 70s, you're way, way, way down. And human growth hormone used to be the gorilla in the room. But over time, that gorilla has shrunk back into almost nothing. You're talking about 10% of having that. But something as simple as fasting can cause the body to create a lot of human growth hormone overnight. In 24-hour fast, you double, triple, quadruple the human growth hormone you have. Well, high-intensity interval training is another stressor on the body that causes human growth hormone to grow quickly. So a lot of things that are there between the telomere shortening, the human growth hormone, they have similar fixes, but not necessarily identical. Deregulated nutrient sensing. Okay, this is a case where I have the nutrients there, but for whatever reason, that organ, that cell, that tissue isn't responding the way it's supposed to. Normally, you'd reach out there, grab a hold of it, thank you very much, and I got what I need. But this affects our growth, our energy levels, our ability to fight infections, a lot of issues because these cells are all over the body, our brains, our heart, our lungs, gut system, everything. So if I'm getting the right nutrients, but they're not available in the right form. In other words, let's say I have a calcium carbonate versus a calcium glycinate. Well, I have the nutrient, but it's in the wrong molecular structure. It makes the bioabsorbability poorer. There are things that I can do, change the kind of molecule I'm getting, especially if I'm getting it out of a jar. Go back to your food choices to get the nutrients that you need. But if I'm looking at the kinds of things that are dealing with nutrient sensitivity, so to speak, anything that's a low carb, polyphenol, your vegetables and fruits, olive oil, nuts, fiber, again, you're looking at your gut. Again, a major portion of what's going to happen to your aging deal. Your autophagy, caloric restriction, avoiding toxins, all of these things affect our nutrient availability and the bioabsorbability. And sometimes even having the right, let's say I need curcumin as one of the molecules in order to support myself, and I think that's one of the ones I have later on. I can make it more bioabsorbable by taking it with black pepper extract, piperine. So if I'm cooking with curcumin, you can add a little bit extra black pepper to make that more bioavailable in the body. Stem cell exhaustion. We make stem cells. We make them all the time. Until recently, it was thought that heart stem cells didn't exist, but they do. And we found that dark chocolate is one of the ones that actually stimulate the production of stem cells to replace the cardiac ones. But when the body starts to lose a cell because of aging or because of injury or infection or some other reason, the body has stem cells. It tells the stem cell, go to the brain, replace that one. Go to your lung, replace that one. Go to your kidney, replace that one. So the stem cells are generic. They assume the role they need to assume when they're assigned a new location in the body to go to. But as we get older, we're making less and less. And as such, you don't have the stem cells to replace kidney issues or lung issues. And so you start having a lot of age-related problems. This actually starts in our 30s and becomes very significant in our 70s. But again, if we're looking at the right kinds of foods, antioxidants, your omega-3s, things that are going to improve our gut health, mushrooms. I mean, I could have added another slide on this one item only, but there's a lot of things in there that help us rebuild, recreate, support stem cells. But it all focuses on our gut. Okay, there we go. It's working again. Macroautophagy disablement. Okay, big term. Autophagy, we already talked about. That's the ability of our bodies to go in, clean the cells of all the extra debris and everything, recycle the stuff that needs to be recycled. They call it another hallmark of aging. Macroautophagy, talking about the whole body, as opposed to microautophagy, might be talking about some aspect inside a cell. So if I shut down the body's ability to clean and recycle, I can run into a lot of problems. Well, how do I turn on autophagy? By fasting, long-term fast to make it happen. But if I'm looking at just maybe cutting back on, maybe my body needs 2,000 calories a day, maybe cutting back to 1,500 or 750 for a day or two, or once a week, twice a week. By cutting back on those things, I reduce what's called mTOR, the mammalian target of rapamycin, which is the counter to autophagy. And so you don't want either one. You don't want autophagy all the time because you starve to death. You don't want mTOR all the time, although you want it as your growth process, because that's what's causing everything to grow and be literally in control growing. So if I'm reducing my mTOR, I'm activating autophagy. If I'm reducing autophagy, I'm activating mTOR. So I got to keep a good balance there. Resveratrol, quercetin, curcumin, all of those require this black pepper extract to become more bioavailable in the body. If I'm just taking a resveratrol tablet or drinking some red wine or grape juice, if I'm having some onions or whatever, I really need to have that black pepper extract. Or if it's not in the pill form, I need to have a lot of black pepper on my plate. A keto diet works very well in supporting this autophagy effort. EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate, is a catechin found in green tea. It again is a major support mechanism for this autophagy effort. Dysbiosis, gut microbiome disruption. I mentioned earlier, our gut is really what's in control of most of our health. And as such, if it's disruptive, it's not getting the right signals, the right nutrients, because that's where all the nutrients are dissolved or absorbed. And it sends it through our gut lining and through our immune system into our bloodstream, and they go to everywhere we need to go. If that's not working right, something's going to happen. You may end up with issues that you can't eat certain kinds of foods, constipation, diarrhea, fatigue, headaches, all sorts of stuff. But you need gut health for healthy aging. Antibiotics, if you're on an antibiotic, make sure you try to get off of that as soon as you can. Talk to your doctor about how often a day can you take probiotics to get your gut back in stabilization mode. Yeah, you may need the antibiotics. There may be some other options for you. But if you just take antibiotics and you don't do anything to help reset your gut health from what could take days or even weeks, may take months to overcome. Antioxidants, omega-3s, fiber, big deal in our foods we don't even think about most of the time. Probiotics, prebiotics, and avoiding processed, particularly ultra-processed foods, refined sugars, refined carbs. Aging, you didn't hear toward the end. As we get older, sometimes we see food allergies, food sensitivities, medications. A lot of things affect our ability to eat certain kinds of foods. I hosted a show yesterday, Talia Smith. There's only 5 foods she can eat. Her condition is such that her body will not tolerate anything else. And it's something caused by a medication that she took that she had a reaction to. I've had sensitivities where I'm eating a tomato. I always eat tomato, and all of a sudden my lips are burning. Or I'm running, and afterwards we always go over and have, go to the beer truck, have a glass or two of beer. Well, first beer was fine. Second glass, all of a sudden I'm getting a headache. I mean, a bad headache. Well, I buy that same beer in a bottle. I don't have a problem, but for whatever reason, in draft form was creating a problem. Okay, back off, change the beer, whatever. Be aware their sensitivities occur, and they can have a major effect on your health. Medications in particular, because there's a lot of medications that interact and we just don't know about it. Balanced nutrition, I've already talked about my wife's chemo and radiation issue. Processed foods, read the labels. The way food's prepared, sometimes if you end up with that really good looking black sear on the outside of a steak or your barbecue, that's what's called advanced glycation end products. Tastes great, but can have an effect on your body's processing of everything. Hydration, another area that we don't think about often. A lot of preservatives in foods. I try to buy mostly organic. Read a lot of labels. Sugar-free is not always sugar-free. I did an Atkins diet back in the mid 90s, and I was on it for about 6 years. Worked perfectly. I lost 7 inches in my gut. I lost about 50 pounds. I was happy. I couldn't run 6-8 miles that I used to be able to do easily. About 2 miles, I was out of energy, totally worthless. I could barely walk the rest of the way back. But I did my very first bone density test, and I found out I was osteopenia. Absolutely shocked me. I had been lifting weights, running for decades, but it turned out that because of the foods I chose on Atkins, and I had read 5 books on it before I ever did it, I never realized that the foods I eat change my body's pH. Anything that's less than a 7 is acidic. Anything more than 7 up to 14 is alkaline. Well, being in an acidic condition, it caused my bone density to change because my bloodstream was leaching calcium from my bones, and that became a major problem. You need the calcium, but you need magnesium to get the calcium absorbed in the stomach. You need vitamin D3 to get it into your bloodstream. You need vitamin K2 to get it into your bones. If you don't have vitamin K2, it goes to your heart valves and arteries. You need your pH to be above 7.4 in order to keep the bloodstream from leaching calcium out of your bloodstream. And I was way below 7 for many years. Okay, so lifestyle change choices, as we've talked about in almost literally every single topic I talk about. And today it's mostly diet. It's a daily event, something that we choose our foods on a daily, what we eat and how it's prepared, how much we eat, whether we take it home or not. But these changes occur incrementally. Most of the time we don't see it. We don't see the extra inch. Yeah, I can step on a scale and say I gained 2 pounds from over the weekend. But what's also interesting is we start acquiring new doctors. I mean, I can't tell you how many new doctors I picked up just in the last 10 years. It's amazing. But many times it takes decades to see the results of poor diet, poor exercise, poor quality sleep, poor stress management. But aging happens regardless, and that aging can be accelerated because of our poor choices. So eat healthy, enjoy life, try to de-stress as best you can, try to make good food choices. If you fail, start over again tomorrow. There's no reason you can't. It's a fairly easy thing to do. So with that being said, I look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care. Bye now.
Meet Red O'Laughlin, TV show host, presenter, and author.
Howdy all, Red O'Laughlin here. I'm a TV host on the USA Global TV and Radio Network.
Red has 3 weekly shows every Thursday.
I've been a TV host now with USA Global probably maybe just a little over 3 years. Probably, I know for sure, 250, 300 shows.
Join Red on the Corner Bookstore.
The Corner Bookstore is one where we talk to authors, publicists, publishers, editors, cover designers, anybody associated with the writing and authoring book production business. If you have somebody in that area, I can help you with regard to getting your book done, getting it published, working with you on a cover. A lot of things I can help people with, and I have probably maybe published over 40 books for people so far.
Join Red on The Wise Ones.
On the Wise Ones, I'm looking for entrepreneurs, business owners, people who have wisdom, lessons learned over time that they can share with others. So please go to usaglobaltv.com, sign up, and join me there.
Book your session on usaglobaltv.com. Join Red on Talking Heads.
On Talking Heads, I take my experience. I fell in love with chemistry many years ago, got a degree in it, got an invitation to Vietnam, never practiced chemistry per se, but I did get a chance when my wife was going through chemo to get back into the chemical end of things. I started looking for cause and effect relationships. I had been working at a company doing cause and effect analysis on failures in the field on various products that we made. So I said, why not look at the cellular structure in the body? The chemicals are chemicals. They do certain things. So I take my knowledge of chemistry and research. I write about it. I speak about it. I have over 1,000 original content articles on LinkedIn, most of them dealing with some aspect of health or wellness. I speak on that topic quite often, and the Talking Head show is one that I concentrate my knowledge of health and wellness on in order to help people.
Red is a distinguished Toastmaster.
As a distinguished Toastmaster, I help people get their speeches developed. The presentation is something that I critique all the time with Toastmasters. It's one of those skills that I have. I can easily help you on that one. So from the position of writing, publishing, book coach, speaking, and being a keynote speaker at an event or virtually, depending on how things work out. But those are the things that I can help people with, and I have 3 shows every week here on the USA Global TV and Network, and please join me when you can. Appreciate it. Bye now.
Here are some of the books that Red has written and published. Contact Red at red.olaughlin.com.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USAGlobalTV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.